Ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored to have been selected for this prestigious award on behalf of all women victims of IS. Also, I thank you to give me the opportunity to talk today to you. After the terrorist attack by IS and its brutal and inhumane activities in Syria and Iraq, the German state of Baden-Württemberg has set up a program with the aim to bring 1,000 women and children who had been in the hands of IS to Germany for medical treatment. As a medical therapeutic head of this program, I talked to, examined, and interviewed more than 1,400 women and girls. Many of them told me stories that were hard to believe. Whenever I thought that I couldn't get any worse, another girl would approach me and tell me about experiences that were even more gruesome. As a scientist, I can classify crimes along various political, sociological, and psychological theories. But I tried to understand simply as a person, as a father who was facing this woman and saw them cry, their body convulsed, full of shame and pain, such as an 80-year-old Rinda who looked into my eyes, hoping that I could explain her why she had been sold 8 times, raped and tortured hundreds of times for more than 10 months. I could not give her any answer to the question of why. Why is this human soul still so grim in the 21st century, so dark and so evil? Ladies and gentlemen, in Europe, even in Europe, we hoped after the terrorist attack on the satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo that such ferociousness would not occur again. But exactly this scenario of terror, of fear and horror was returned to Paris later the same years. Obviously, the terrorist war is not limited in Iraq and Syria. More, where hundreds of thousands of people are persecuted, taken hostage, tortured, and raped. The terrorists have managed to spark fear in the world. With this perfidious strategy, they want all of us to be afraid. They want to induce political chaos and destroy our achievement of freedom, democracy, philosophy, morality, and ethics. That's the way we want to live and want to live. Ladies and gentlemen, let me also say that the Western world and the regional actors in Near and Middle East have underestimated IS due to their political economic interests. Many intelligence services made use of IS, allowed it to become the grueling Islamic state it is today. And still it's go ahead, and a lot of countries supported the IS or intelligence services. However, the IS is different from Islamist terrorist organizations as we know them. It persuades at a totalitarian fascistic organization like a Nazi regime in Germany some years ago. Utilizes Islamic symbols and proceeds with an unknown destructiveness. It distributes its form of terrorism across the whole world and doesn't take any pity of people who don't submit to them. The number of potential perpetrators and supporters is huge. Terror has many religion and ideological faces. It utilizes modern media and creates transnational networks. Civilian casualties are taken into account, even intended. The terror of IS aims at spreading fear and horror. Attackers kill themselves on an unprecedented scale, maltreat, rape, and sell young girls, behead people in front of rolling cameras, and post the films online. This terror surmounts our human understanding of barbarity and suffering. It affects thousands of innocent people. IS started this destruction early, 3 years ago, in Iraq and Syria. Not only to kill and enslave people, they also destroy cultural heritages, sites, monuments, and status, and a part of our memory and therefore of our identity. Thus, they also want to kill our past, so that mankind loses its collective identity. I wonder how full of hatred against our values they have to be even destroy rocks with such kind of fanaticism. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to be realistic. I also have to admit that death of men, women, and children is nothing new. In the course of wars and violent conflicts in the history of mankind, the mere fact of that violence is tolerated and applied in a society as a means and aid change its nature and character, from a future of an individual to a future of a community as well. Regarded historically and presently, violence has long-lasting effect on how society develops, how it handles its conflict, and how its children and grandchildren are likely to act. If physical violence prevails in long term, and this is the case in Near and Middle East, then is such long-lasting influences on society that culture of violence emerges. It has left its traces in a nationalist ideological of occurring countries in the region as well in their religion, a patriarchal perspective in conjunction with the exertion of violence in all areas of life. This leaves a stamp of the action of individuals and makes them distrustful towards any member of their society. Therefore, each group might have been victims. But another reality is we have also perpetrators. Therefore, it is not of surprise that Islamist terrorism enjoy some degree of sympathy and support in the Muslim populace, since there are no other actors whom trust either. It seizes this opportunity to reinforce the distrust and instability with pure force. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to ask us, of course, why this negotiation of humanity? Violence that is designed to kill people requires an explanation about the ones who exert it as well about the victims. Since life is seen as being something secret and this saintless is violated by the exertion of physical violence, the offenders need a principle in order to justify the immoral and inhuman actions. The IS terrorists legitimize the deeds with the Islamic religion and justify it with, among other things, their own humiliation by their own or imperialistic countries. I will give you an example which Zohrab Ahmiri wrote about this case in Wall Street Journal. Thank you very much, Zohrab. It's a very important case, and all the world should know about this issue. Thus, a 26-year-old woman who I examined in the northern Iraq told me that she had 3 children. She said her 2-year-old daughter had been killed by IS and started to cry. Her 6-year-old son was sitting behind his mother, with his hands and feet trembling, but quite apart from that. Suddenly, her 5-year-old daughter came up to me with a smartphone, showing me the lovely-looking 2-year-old girl, her sister, Luzine. Like nearly all other women I have treated, her mother told me about the IS attack, her abduction, enslavement, and raping. When I asked her why the daughter has been killed, she told me that she had to read the Quran every day. But since her mother tongue was Kurdish and her Arabic wasn't good, she made mistakes while reading and couldn't recite everything. Thus, in order to punish the mother, the 2-year-old Luzine put into tin box in the blazing head. The mother was not allowed to retrieve Luzine from the box for 7 days. Otherwise, the IS terrorist threatened he would kill the other 2 children. In the evening, Luzine was allowed to eat something, but wouldn't immediately throw it up. After 7 days, this IS terrorist retrieved Luzine from the box and immersed her in ice-cold water, whereupon one of her eyes dropped out. 2 hours later, the same terrorists returned and battered Luzine's back several times until her backbone broke. 2 days later, Luzin died. When the terrorist seeing the little body of Luzin, he lifted up into the air and dropped into the floor. And he said, "This is how all these believers have to die." This IS terrorist refers to explanation pattern as well known. That is, that disbelievers have to convert or to be killed. In this terror group perceptions, all disbelievers, such as Yazidis, Christians, Jews, Yarasan, Shabaks, Mandeas, and all another minority religions are evil, malicious, immoral, and human. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the most simple, most effective, and most all-encompassing the way to explain why humans were still are to be killed. These culprits obviously lost any kind of individuality. They became non-person and killed themselves and others for an imaginary higher goal of unbelievable, non-discussable, and infallible belief. Suicide and murder of humans became like a pathological obsession and mania. The evilness of one's own action is twisted into the dysfunctional way to be good. On another, more delusional mental level, they even believe by killing their victims, they release them from the misery of disbelief. The culprit who couldn't be killed himself is infected with a belief that thus became a martyr, that is immortal. In the end, these terrorists have left behind any reality that's known to us. To kill the disbelievers in a suicide attack is a goal that makes any dialogue with the approach of these people impossible, since they see death as liberation. Feeling such an empathy with others, mourning and sorrow are suppressed to an extent they can kill children or beheaded and bury hundreds of people alive. As we can see with IS terrorism in Iraq and Syria, such apocalyptic notion results in a dehumanization of human. With this conceptual framework, the others became non-human and have to be killed. If consistently and systematically applied, this ideology also has an effect on children who have been captured and trained as child soldiers. On 25th January, when I was in Iraq, Kurdistan, we were able to talk on phone to some Yazidi children who didn't want to go home, and like IS members said that the Yazidis were disbelievers and had to die. They reported to me that 270 Yazidi children to be among them, and that all of them would fight for a true faith. The children are drilled and exploited in a similar ways as child soldiers in Africa. They are educated to become humane and are finally supposed to take action against their own families. In the camps, they are trained to beat, crucify, or bury other children alive if they don't comply with IS rules. The ones who are not sent to combat serve as footmen for the emirs, as guards, or as spies. Some children who have been released change significantly. They defend Islam and IS, also they may be Yazidis. They threaten to decapitate their own families unless they join IS. The children are supposed to carry this pathological ideology of IS into their own society and hollow it from within. Ladies and gentlemen, with this project, I also got to know many strong girls and women. They have gone through the hell, experience the worst of human being they can experience. Nevertheless, the fight for survival, confronting these horrifying memories even every single day. They fight for hope. Even so, the question of why this happened to them remains unanswered. They want their future back, and they want to regain faith in humankind. Death and the desire for safety, closeness and love go hand in hand. Therefore, we have to help the people who had to endure the suffering. Resistance against war and genocide, as well as accommodating traumatized refugees, are among the core values of human dignity and should advocate together in the Western world. I would have liked to see us helping even more people who had to experience these atrocities. Unfortunately, only 1,100 people, women and girls, could be brought to Germany for medical treatment. However, every life is a life that has to be rescued. I haven't lost hope for peace in the Near East, and I hope through many projects we can help. But at last, I will to remind again, as Rwanda was a disgrace for the humankind, and Bosnia was a disgrace for the humankind, the Yazidis genocide and minority is the same. And how often must this recur? How often? Thank you.